All right, everybody. Today we have a different approach to law enforcement. I have Amy Martin, and she is a dispatcher in a small town in West Virginia. She's also married to my father. 20 years, 23 years?
23 years. Yep,
So
23 years.
I've known Amy for a very long time, and she has graciously agreed to talk about not just her life, but also dispatching. It's something that I think is missed when people talk about law enforcement. And I could tell you shamefully, when talking about the different calls I've been on, very rarely do I ever think what the dispatchers go through until you start being a dispatcher. And some of the stuff that you're doing in your agency, I'm excited to get into because I think it's important across the nation. But Amy, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm so excited to be here.
I love it. Well, I like to just let everybody kind of get an idea who you are. So can you talk a little bit about how you grew up, where you grew up, what kind of influenced you?
I grew up in a little town, very small town in West Virginia. Went to a really small high school. I was a cheerleader. You know, it was a Friday night football kind of town. Everybody knew everybody. You went to church with them. It just was a small town USA. It was a great place to grow up, great place to raise kids. Got out of high school, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Ended up getting into sales. And it was a great career for me. I like talking to people and being around people, so it worked out great. It also helped that you can make a lot of money in sales, so it was great. And did that for about 15 years. That's where I met your dad. He was my boss. And we ended up, I guess, starting a family, not starting a family. We didn't have kids, but we put our two families together. We have 6 kids between us. We have the Brady Bunch. And I was done with sales. It's a young person's career for sure.
For sure.
So I really wanted to get out of that. Thought maybe I'd go to nursing school, got a job working in a hospital. Did that for about 7 years. Never went to nursing school. And then all of you all started having babies.
Oh, yeah.
So I had grandbabies and I just wanted to be with them. So I just took a break. Your dad was working. I was fortunate that, he could support us. Just wanted to be with the grandchildren. And that's what I did until now they're all in school.
Yeah.
So a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I realized I've got to find and figure out something else to do. And I was 57 years old. So, wow, this is, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something that I felt good about.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I really wanted to find something. So oddly enough, there was just an advertisement for a dispatcher's position in the sheriff's department. I just said, well, let's just go. Let's go try it out.
See what happens.
Well, a little backstory. The sheriff of Giles County is a very old friend of mine. We went to high school together, so I knew him. A lot of the people who work there, of course, I know them because, again, we all know everybody. And I thought, well, great, I can go to work with these people. I know them. I like them. And so I applied and I got the job. I am the second oldest person at the sheriff's department behind the sheriff.
Understood.
So, because I think dispatching is normally a young person's career.
Yeah.
A lot of people start dispatching because they want to go and be a law enforcement officer of some kind. We get people that do fire and rescue and then come in and do dispatch. So I think it's a lot of times a sounding or like a board to get to to go to officers training or to do something like that. So
get your foot in the door.
Yeah, get your foot in the door and kind of get an idea of what it's like. And we have 3 deputies right now that were dispatchers, and then they went to training, and now they're deputies.
I think it's an interesting avenue. And again, I hadn't even thought of that until, obviously we talked about these things before, because again, when I became a deputy, I was in sales and stuff like that. And then I'm learning how to be a cop. But one of the hardest things to do, if you've never done it, is talk on the radio and communicate with the dispatcher. Yeah.
100%. And it helps, obviously, for our deputies that were dispatchers.
Yeah.
It's easy peasy. Now, some of the other deputies, and especially the older ones, you want to kill them some days because they don't talk in the radio or they talk too fast or whatever. But they're better than most, I have to admit. But it does help. I think it does help. And I think it kind of gives you an idea. because we also have people that thought that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Wanted to go into law enforcement, became a dispatcher, and I think saw the side of it that, maybe doesn't seem as glamorous as it does.
Most people don't think about, yeah.
No, they don't. So then they decided not to and just went other avenues. But for me, there's a lot to learn to be a dispatcher.
Yes.
You have, and when I say a lot, I mean, technologically, like you said, I had never talked on a radio before.
Yeah.
Just learning how to navigate maps and phones, and you've got to be typing the entire time because you're typing everything that they're telling you, whether it's, whatever it is. I mean, it can be a pursuit. I mean, they're flying down the road at 100 miles an hour and they're screaming out their locations and you've got to get that in.
Mm-hmm.
All this stuff, and you've got to do it really fast.
Yep.
And you've got to be calm and you've got to be thinking 3 steps ahead all the time.
Yep.
So it was a lot.
Like,
and
what else
I was
are you going to need?
young.
An ambulance?
Yes. Am I going to need a helicopter for this motorcycle accident?
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
And I'm not young. I'm not a young, kid anymore. And your brain doesn't work as well when you're almost 60. So it was a lot. And there were days when I thought,
maybe not.
Maybe not. But every day it got a little easier. And every day I loved it more. And when you work in this first responder mode, it becomes a family.
Yeah.
Because people say things like words like trauma bond and all this stuff. I don't really think it's that. I just think it's that we are always dealing with people possibly the worst days of their life or one of the worst days of their lives. It's never a happy time. I don't get happy calls, and my officers aren't going on happy calls. EMS is not going because somebody feels great. Fire's there because something's burning down.
Yeah.
So we go through all of this together, and we're trying to help people. Sometimes they don't make it easy to help them at all.
Yeah.
And you're the enemy sometimes, and but it makes you really close to each other. And I just love that. I mean, it's just a family.
Yeah. And you told me, and again, these are things I've just never thought about, but a lot of larger cities or maybe larger areas, whatever, they have different dispatchers for law enforcement, for fire, for EMS.
Right. Exactly.
Whatever the differences might be. I've actually, in Florida, each agency had their own dispatchers. So if you wanted to communicate with Tampa PD or Polk County or Tarpon Springs, whatever, that's a different dispatch. I mean, they'd patch you in or whatever, but you're pretty much it for all of Giles County.
Exactly. We do everything. And we have, like you said, we have the sheriff's office, which has 25 deputies. You have the municipalities, which have their smaller, which is probably around 12 officers.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have EMS, which we never have more than 2 paid ambulances on standby at any given time. Everything else is volunteer. And all of our fire departments are volunteer, which is
I didn't know that.
Terrifying sometimes. When somebody calls and there's a barn on fire, it's going to take, they've got to get to the fire station. They're not sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
And Giles County is very rural, 17,000 people, 360 miles. That barn's probably 45 minutes down a dirt road.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating and hard, but you get used to that, but it's just so different than I know it is in the large cities.
Yeah, and just to put perspective, and someone's got to check my math on it, but Hillsborough County, the population it fluctuated from 12 to 20 million depending on the days of the week. It was 888 square miles.
Yeah.
I think at the time Hillsborough County had, because BJ corrected me one time, I thought it was 1,200 deputies, but I think it's never been more than maybe 900 to 1,000. And you're dealing with over 1 million calls for service a year, that kind of stuff. And then just a different perspective. In Maine, there's 243 troopers. Now, I don't know how many deputies and municipalities, but there was 5 troopers. We covered 5,000 square miles, or I'm sorry, 3,000 square miles, but we would also help cover another county, so that added the 2,000. Yeah. So 5,000 square miles was like our domain.
Yeah. And see, our troopers are the same way. We do not dispatch for Virginia State troopers. They do have their own dispatch, but they are spread so thin.
Yeah.
And they typically handle most of just our road, our traffic people, accidents, things like that. I mean, they will definitely go with our deputies, but for the most part, that's what they handle. Also consider we have 25 deputies, but 5 of them are school resource officers.
Oh, I didn't. Okay.
So in the summertime, they actually come out and help with the road, but during the school year, we have one at every school.
Yeah.
So I think that the machine itself just works differently, clearly,
Yeah.
than it does in a city. But it's interesting. And we have another county, a bordering county that has 7 deputies for the entire county.
Oh my God.
You only have one dispatcher ever in the dispatch center.
Doing everything.
Oh
my God.
And I think to myself, I don't think that my anxiety could handle it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just different. When we did our training, we trained with dispatchers from other counties.
Yeah.
One of the counties had an interstate that went through it. So their day was very different than ours because we don't have that kind of traffic coming through our county.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different animal. So it's just different ways to think about how, well, you have to handle it when you're different places. But for us, it makes it, because we're small, it's a family thing.
Yeah.
And I love that about it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you know everybody.
Yeah.
Well, at least everybody in the agency, but.
And most of the people in the county too.
Yeah. Which we're going to touch on that. So you had mentioned that you were the second oldest in the department, but the more that I've talked to you and thought about these things, I'm wondering, like, that might be a benefit because you've experienced life, and we're going to get into some of the traumatic calls that you've had. You have a better wealth of experience and knowledge on maybe to empathize, one, with the people that this is happening to, but also articulate to the deputies that are responding. And also, because I'm sure you get young deputies fresh out of the academy, whatever, they're learning, and you're like, you're going to a fatal crash, probably going to need EMS, you're going to need fire. Sometimes they're just focused on getting there. They're trying to figure out what they got. You could save time and potentially lives just because you have the experience.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I think you can see it, you know, in the different, and I think the biggest advantage that I have is there are times, lots of times, when we're on the phone with a family member or, you know, or just somebody calls and says they think they've overdosed, and I need to keep them on the phone and I need to keep talking to them till I can get EMS there. I can sit there and just talk.
That's your sales experience.
Yeah, it's part of my sales experience. It's part of my age. Where the other girls are like, how do you, and I say girls because all of our dispatchers are female. It's just the way it is. It's not, it wasn't, we would take a man, but they just don't usually apply. But they'll say, how do you just think of things to say? But again, you're right. I'm older, and then the sales comes into it. So I think I used to laugh and think maybe that they had an advantage, but I think it's probably equal.
Yeah, that's the more I think about it,
Yeah.
because we're going to get into it. It's like some of this stuff is devastating.
Yeah.
And once again, I've talked about it many times on this podcast and other, law enforcement professionals, and they've talked about it, and it sticks with you.
100%.
I got to be, you know what? I'll change it up a little bit. I'll talk about one. The first time I really started thinking about it, I was with the Secret Service. I've told you this one. And we were moving motorcade vehicles for a protectee coming in, me and my boss. And we're in rural Maine, and we come across a truck that had just hit a tree, 2 occupants. Passenger side is the side we approached first. The guy was still alive. He was, a little shaken up from the crash, but he was alive. I was trying to open the door. It was pinned in. Couldn't open the door, but called 911. We were running through it, right? He goes, check on my friend. I can't see my friend because the way the airbags had deployed, you couldn't see the other side. So I walked over the other side. And again, I knew immediately he was done. He was bleeding from his eyes, his ears. He was completely gone. But I told him, I said, we got help. I told the pastor, I was just trying to keep him focused because he's freaking out a little bit. And all he kept saying is, I can't feel my foot. I can't feel my foot. So we're waiting. It's taking a long time. Because again, keep in mind, we're in rural Maine, so I get it. But then the truck starts catching on fire, and you can see it smoking up in the engine. And he starts freaking out. I start freaking out. My boss is freaking out. He's on with 911, and I took the phone from my boss, and I regrettably was, there's a lot going on, so I'm not trying to make excuses, but I was not polite to the dispatcher. I said, God damn it, where the fuck it's been. Yeah. It's probably only been 2 minutes, which is not enough time. It feels like hours.
I know.
And I'm like, I need a fucking fire truck. It's on fire. They're going to die if you don't. I said, fuck, we need them here. And I'm angry. Credit to the dispatcher, and I'm going to get to the point, because she was trying to help. She was being very polite. Gave the phone back to Dave, my boss, and I'm starting to stop cars. I'm trying to get fire extinguishers. I probably ran 5 miles in a 20-yard span because I'm just running back and forth because I'm trying to put it out. But it's little car. It's an oil and gas fire, and I'm trying to put it out with something you keep in the back of your car. Who knows, right? So then I say, fuck it. I said, I grabbed the guy under his armpits and I'm trying to pull him. I'm like, you're going to lose your foot. He goes, I don't care. And I'm pulling I'm a big dude. I pulled with every part of me. I couldn't get him out. And it got to the point where the heat started. It was overwhelming me. I couldn't get close to it. And Dave and I sat there and watched these two young men burn to death. And and he had hung up with the dispatcher because he was trying to help me pull this guy out. I called him back. I said, hey, they're dead. Just like that. And it again, I think all in, it took them 15 minutes from the point of the call till they actually got there to get there. It felt, I swear, I was exhausted, sweating. I was emotionally distraught. Watching someone burn alive is rugged. And then they got there, they took over the scene. We told what happened. And then we left. We still had a job to do.
Sure.
We got back in the cars and we had still to work a 12-hour shift that day. Something that the fire chief did that I had never been a part of. I've worked, I don't know. I was in law enforcement for almost 10 years before I went over to the bedside. We never debriefed with fire, dispatch. We never did that ever, not once. And he said, hey, I would like to do this was 2 weeks later. I'd like to do a debrief. So we all met at the fire station and I didn't really want to be there because I'm like, I don't want to relive this, but I got to meet everybody and see everybody who was there, including the dispatcher. And I apologized to her right up front. And I apologized to her in front of the group. She goes, no, we understand. We deal with this a lot.
We do.
That's the first time I ever thought about it. Just to round out the story, it's hard to say it made me feel better because I still had to watch the young men die like that. But they were like, the majority, besides me and the dispatcher and my boss, they didn't know that the occupants were still alive when we got on scene.
Oh.
They had no idea. So when they heard that, a lot of dudes started crying. And the fireman commander who took over the scene he stood up, he goes, nothing you could have done would have gotten him out. The fire engine was in his lap. The engine had collapsed onto his, he goes, there's nothing you could have done.
You couldn't see that?
No, because the way the airbags it's just, I didn't know. He said his foot, so I thought maybe his foot was wrinkled up, had nothing to do with it. And they also said it took 5,000 gallons of water to put it out because the pine tree and the gas and the oil and the power line started snapping.
Yeah.
It was wild scene. And I didn't know that part because we had left. But the tree then caught off. It was a huge deal. I didn't realize that because we had left. We got to go. So the debrief really actually helped.
Yes.
In my mind.
Yeah, it
I
does.
was struggling with my brain. Like I could have saved this guy. All that. But that was the first time I was able to reflect and face the dispatcher I actually communicated with. I said, I'm the one who yelled at you and I'm sorry. And again, she was very gracious, very professional. And again, it's hard for me to sit here and say I felt better because at the end of the day, they still passed away. But that's what began to make me think about that. And so now I talk to you about these things.
Yeah. And it's, okay, that happens all the time. Number one, they scream at us all the time.
Yep.
So if you don't have a thick skin, it's not a job for you.
Yeah.
Because even your partners are going to scream at you.
Yeah.
Rightfully so, because they're just as frustrated as you are. And they're there. And I think that's funny too. And I've told the deputies, like, you guys are there and you're on scene and you're seeing it all. Okay. We're not. All we've got is what's in our ear.
Yeah.
And sometimes our imagination makes it worse than it is.
Fair
it's
enough.
Almost hard because we can hear them. We hear them screaming, get the fuck down. And you hear a gun go off and then they don't say anything to you because they're securing a scene or whatever. And for the next minute to a minute and a half, I don't know if my heart stops beating. I don't know, but I'm sweating. And I know I can't start yelling at them. I know they've got to focus. I know I have to trust them and let them do it, but it's horrible because we love these people.
Yeah.
And I don't know if one of them just got shot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our biggest fear. I mean, that's my number one job is to make sure they all go home at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so it's equally hard because again, we can't see it. We can just hear it.
Yeah.
And like you said, those things that people say and the sounds that you hear are what we take home. I think as officers and deputies take home visions.
Yeah.
Like what you saw.
Yep.
We take home what we heard.
Well, several people, BJ, Mo, have all talked about it, Frank. Some of the scenes you see are horrific and it sticks with you, and we're going to get into that part. But I 100% people who have been on the street or let me not just narrow it down. People who have been involved in horrific tragedies, or, well, we'll just call them scenes tragedies, they all say the same thing. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever. They all go, I can hear the anguish in their voice. Whoever is happening, that's what they hear. It registers in your brain.
Yeah.
So again, you're listening. All this is recorded. It's a lot of times it's live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is because, and you also feel helpless.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm doing what I need to do, and I know I've got to keep my cool, and I've just got to be calm because I have to keep thinking about what else you're going to need, what they're going to need, what I need to do, so I have to do that. But you still feel so helpless. Again, when someone calls, if somebody just goes over to visit their 90-year-old mother and they find that she passed away overnight, still she was 90, she just fell asleep, but they call and they're very, very distraught.
Yeah.
And you're just, you're talking them through it. You're getting EMS because they still have to go.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking. I mean, to hear, a 70-year-old man crying because he just found his mom.
Yeah.
I mean, and those aren't even accidents or tragedies. That's just life.
Yeah.
But again, we just, that's what we hear. And I mean, if you're not empathetic to things like that, I don't think you'd be doing this job, but it is hard, and it's things that you take with you.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. And there are sounds that I hear.
Yeah.
Still.
Right.
And, I am very fortunate because we work through things and we all talk about it, and we all, it's, and that's something else. You can't really talk about a lot of things that happen because if you aren't in law enforcement or if you're not a first responder, I think it's really hard for just regular people to understand.
Oh, 100%.
The dark humor, the things that we laugh at, but we have to laugh because
funny,
we're going to go crazy if we don't.
Yeah. Well, and you're describing stuff, and it's making me think, as it usually does, that I can remember, because you're on scene or you're the person calling in, you're seeing what happened, and what happened, but your brain is working much faster than your mouth, and so you would try to call and explain what's going on, like, well, I'm standing right fucking here. I know they're there, and you're like, I'm not there. I need you to articulate to me what it is you're seeing and what you need, because that way I can get you what you need. And they're like, well, you should already know what I need.
Yeah, it is really hard. And that was something I had to learn too, because I mean, me, I'm pretty, I mean, I'm real talkative, and I'm, kind of a type A, high energy.
Yeah.
And I had to learn.
Yeah.
I have to stay calm because they're not. Yeah. There is no way. And at the beginning, you kind of feed off of other people. So when somebody would call me in, they were all amped up and they're screaming at me and stuff. Your first response is to either scream back or, yell at them or whatever. But you just and it was hard. That was something I had to learn.
Yeah.
We've got to keep it together because we're the only people that's going to get them help.
Yeah.
So it was hard.
Yeah.
It was difficult.
Well, let's get into a couple of the calls, because I do want to get into the mental health part, because I think your sheriff's office is amazing, but I lead to that. So you go through your training period, you're cut loose. What was your first call that you remember being on your own, having to deal with all the stuff you're dealing with?
Beautiful Sunday morning, March, so it's starting to be spring. We had actually made breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
So the deputies, we had an officer and two deputies in there. We'd made, biscuits, gravy. We were, it was slow morning, Sunday morning. People are at church, so it's not that busy. Phone rings. The first, I could hear him before we have a recording. So when the 911 rings, it says, 911, where's your emergency? That's what it's recorded.
Yeah.
Before that recording even got through, I could hear this wailing. Wailing. It was a man. And like you said, he was just wailing and wasn't even speaking words.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, okay, sir, I need you to tell me what's wrong. Now we have maps. So if they call 911, I can ping his location. So I could see where he was.
Yep.
And I kept, I finally got him calmed down, and he said, my wife just shot herself.
Mm.
I said it back. I said, your wife just shot herself. And everybody, you heard forks drop.
Mm-hmm.
The deputies and officers were up, out, and then screaming at me. Tell him not to touch her.
Yeah. Ask
him where the gun is. They're yelling things at me as they're running out the door. Again, I'm 3 months in.
Yeah, they're already thinking about scene six.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And so I'm 3 months in and thinking, oh my gosh. So, of course, they lived. It took the first officers. Those officers got on scene in about 40 minutes. I mean, we're talking out.
You do live in rural
Yes,
areas, so yeah,
out. I mean,
people don't understand that.
they were cooking to get there. So they got there, but between that time, so I talked to him that long. He cried a lot. Then he would like stop crying and start talking about like like I met her here and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
I'm like trying to talk to him. They'd been going through a rough time. They had lost custody of their kids. He was saying they were trying to get them back. So we talked about the kids. It, it was a long, long 40 minutes. And
yeah,
when I got done, I literally was sweating. I mean, it was so hard. Here's the one thing I remember
yeah,
because there's always like a piece.
yeah,
And he said to me, because I had said, I think at some point, my name's Amy.
yep.
And he was he was talking to me and he said, she was just making us eggs for breakfast. That sentence
Mm,
stays in my brain because for a minute I thought, okay, how did she go from
mm-hmm.
standing at the stove, cooking eggs for breakfast to getting your gun, walking outside and shooting herself behind your truck?
Yeah, yeah,
What just happened?
yeah,
And so it was really hard. I, I felt like I needed a nap. I felt like I needed to like lay down. I was exhausted and I just had been sitting in a chair. Afterwards, our sheriff, I had to go to counseling.
yep.
He brought in counselors and I and the officers that were on scene and the other dispatcher, we all had to sit down. I had to go several times because, I was on the phone. I didn't think that I needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
At the time,
You're like,
I
I'm fine.
thought, I mean, it was a terrible thing,
Yeah,
but I thought, okay, we did the best we could and I did my job, but still. And I realized though later because for some reason that sentence of she was just making us eggs for breakfast, somebody will say something like, I'm going to make some eggs for breakfast. And
mm,
immediately I'm thinking
yeah,
about him and I've seen him. He came into to the sheriff's office afterwards for them to, interview him and run tests and,
yeah,
do all that you had to do. So I know, I knew her. I mean, I knew what she looked like. I
yeah,
mean, and it's just, it was, it just stays with you. It's
yeah.
never going to go away. Okay.
Nope.
I know that.
Yeah,
And it's, and I'm never, it's always going to make me sad and it's always going to be, a loss, but we talk about it and we go through it and they say things to you that you don't think about because I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, I
yeah,
don't know. And they, give us tools to help us so that it doesn't eat us alive,
yeah.
which I think after time it would if you didn't work through those calls.
So when you say we talk about it, just you and the therapist, or do you guys talk about it at the
We talk
office?
about it. I mean, the sheriff will sit down and talk to you about it.
That's
If you
amazing.
want to talk about it, he'll say, you come to my office anytime and we'll talk about it. He's not a professional therapist or
No.
whatever, but it just, like I said, sometimes just talking to your peers, and he's not
Yeah,
my peer, he's my sheriff, but just talking to the people that are there and that family that you have, that helps.
yeah,
But then he also makes sure that he brings in counselors and the deputies hate it. Oh my God. Cause
yeah.
you do not like talking to people
No,
about
nope.
and the sheriff said, I used to be the very same way and we're not doing it like that. He said, I'm not.
We're gonna get into your sheriff because I'm saving him for last. Because it's I don't. Maybe you do realize, maybe you don't, how rare what you're saying out loud is.
I
That is
didn't know until you
fucking
told me.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's not normal.
Yeah, I know.
There might be a dozen other agencies in the country and again, it's only because the sheriff wants it done.
100%.
It's fucking great. But anyway, I want to save that because I'm very impressed by it. And I have other questions for you personally, but I want to talk about a couple. We're trying to spread out the calls. I know there's a million calls you talk about. So then you were talking about maybe your first car accident or the fatal.
Yeah. And that's hard. It was a young person.
Comes in, yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't take the call for the car crash.
Yeah.
I took the call for her husband.
Yeah, who called in?
And I can't tell. I know.
Yeah, you know what's going on.
I know she's dead on scene. I know.
Yeah.
And, he's asking questions like, are you going to fly her in a helicopter? I mean, I know we're not going to do that sort of thing. We're not. And you can't say anything. And this kid, and he was like, I think they were in their early 30s. He's begging. I don't know. I did not know them because
Yeah.
they were not from our area. She was just driving through.
Yeah.
but I still, it didn't mean that I was any less empathetic to the fact that,
Yeah.
and, I think he knew because I couldn't tell him anything that she had died.
Yeah.
But that's horrible. I mean,
how do you process? I mean, this is just you. I'm not asking for policy, but how do you process that where you're dealing with a young, in this scenario, young man, his wife is dead. He's trying to find out and you're having to be patient and also adhere to the rules. But I mean, he's dealing in complete anguish at this
point.
And
it's not like I mean, obviously I'm not going to hang up on him.
Yeah.
I have to just say,
you can't be rude. And
I can't be rude. I mean, again, this is the worst day of his life. Yeah. This will never leave him.
Yep.
And it's almost muscle memory. And I remember telling him that I promise I will have somebody call you as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Is there somebody there with you? Where are you? I was trying to get his information just so that part of me was thinking, okay, I hope, he's not by himself. I didn't ask him that specifically, but I did want to know where he was. I didn't want him to jump in his car and, come flying to where we were and then wreck. I mean, there was no reason for him to do that, although I couldn't say that.
Yeah.
I said, I promise you, I'm going to find out everything that you need to know, and I'm going to have somebody call you.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that I don't have any more information for you. And just, I guess sometimes I think about what I would want someone, to say to me if it was my husband.
Yeah.
And that's what you try to do. Again, people don't call us on good days. That's my job.
Typically not.
No, I mean, you're not going to call me and say, God, it's a beautiful day, and I just wanted to call you and tell you I love you. That's not going to happen.
No.
It's their worst day of their life. They're bad, whether it's a fight or a domestic or any of those things. They're mad.
Yeah.
Not at us, but they're going to yell at us.
Yep, correct.
And so that's all it is. It's all, every time the phone rings.
Yeah.
Most people, when the phone rings or you get a message or whatever, be like, oh, look, that's my buddy, or, mom's calling or whatever. Well, when our phones ring,
shit's going down.
Yep.
One way or the other.
Yep.
So that's one of my stories that I have told, and it sticks with me. The first time that I saw it was a young woman with 3 kids. They all died. Drunk driver T-boned her minivan. I think she was going to the grocery store based on what was in the car. And everyone was dead on scene. I think I'm trying to explain. It takes a long time, hours. That scene is probably not going to be cleared for 10, 12 hours. I don't even know. Sometimes longer depending on the nature of the crash. Well, obviously the husband's like, where the fuck is my family? She was supposed to go to the grocery store. It's now 2 hours, not answering the phone. What the fuck's going on?
Right.
So he's driving to the grocery store. He sees his car. We were trying to figure out who her husband was, because people think that cops just roll on that boom, boom, boom. We know everybody contact. It doesn't work that way. It takes time. You're running stuff. You're trying to figure out, and especially if they've never been in trouble.
Right.
Like,
we have no records.
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
Yeah. And you're like calling the DMV and you're trying to figure these things out. Try to see where's it registered, find the house, whatever. There's a million things. Also, I will say this, just a side note. This is why you need to update your driver's license and your registration when you 100%.
Move. 100%. Get your right address on there.
Yeah, it's not always for criminal stuff. It's like, we need to find you.
Yeah.
What's going on? But he found the crime scene, or the scene, the traffic crash, and he just collapsed. And I said, somebody go, what is this? Who is it? And it was her husband.
Right.
Again, that's I heard the deputy that went over. It's still sick. It makes me tear up sometimes. They told him what it was, and he just started crying. And the anguish.
Yeah. It's a sound.
Oof. It's a sound. You can't replicate it.
And
I don't know how to.
I can't. When I say wailing, it was crying, it was wailing, it was screaming, it was.
Yeah.
It's impossible. You're right. It's impossible to describe.
But you know it when you hear it.
Oh.
Yeah. Just like when your kids cry, they're like, wait, something's wrong.
Yeah, that's a hurt cry. That's a mad cry.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
Something's wrong.
Same. Yeah.
I want to get to this one because this is also, I've never dealt with this, but the explosion.
Okay.
We got to talk about it.
We have a plant. It's called Celanese.
Yep.
And they make
corrosive stuff.
Yeah, they make corrosive stuff. Yeah, they're a production plant, and there's all kinds of corrosive stuff. And this has just been a few weeks ago. There was an accident. There was an explosion.
Yep.
And okay, so at the time there was me, and the phone 911 rang, and this is also, I guess, a benefit to working in a small town. When the call came into my ear, the man said, I need at least 2 ambulances Boomer says we need 2 ambulances at the front gate, stat. And he hung up on me.
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, I knew where the call came from again because I have a map.
Yeah.
But even if I hadn't, Boomer, that's what we call him. That's not his name. It's not his real name, but that's what everybody calls him. He's actually the head of their fire department and EMS at Celanese. Okay. And he has been in the fire department, the volunteer fire department, his whole life. His dad was a volunteer fireman.
Yeah.
He knows this inside and out. So I knew who Boomer was. So I knew we were at Celanese. Yeah. And I knew if Boomer was saying we need at least 2 ambulances, something really bad had happened. Yep. So it's one of those times where you just can't be afraid to get on the radio and go, Giles, to all EMS, I need 2 ambulances at the front gate of the Celanese, stat. And then just start calling fire and then start getting your deputies down there.
Yeah.
So it's just, and they got down there. It was pretty bad. Nobody died, which is honestly a miracle.
Yeah.
But we had ambulances there and had them, to the hospital in less than 30 minutes. Which,
that's impressive. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that was, it was, everybody came together. And I mean, every law enforcement officer that was anywhere close to Celanese, volunteer firemen, I mean, everybody just went.
Yeah.
Because everybody that lives in Giles County has a scanner.
Which
they listen
I know
to
what you're talking about. Yep.
On a daily basis.
Yeah.
And so everybody just goes. And it was a terrible thing. And 2 men got hurt pretty badly, but they're actually, I think, going to be okay. It will take some time. But it's also those days when the whole community comes together and, people just dropped everything and just went.
Well, I make no bones about it. Very big on small town America. I fucking love it. It's where I want to end up. It's where I want to live, retire. And you're just highlighting some of the reasons why. Because I tell you right now, if that call came in like that in Hillsborough, people be like, who the fuck was that? What are they talking about?
Yeah.
Where is this? What's going on? It would have probably they probably wouldn't have done anything until somebody called back. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean maybe.
Maybe. I don't know.
Like you said, I think there's, and again.
But you knew, and you're like, I know who that person is. Not only that, but if he's saying that, we
got to go.
Some shit's going down.
Yeah, we're going. Yeah. So it was, and I was super proud and of the very quick response time. And because again, our fire departments are volunteer. We had the 2 ambulances, and actually one of our medics from Carillion, which is the hospital there, were already on a call. So we got 1 medic from the hospital, and then the other ambulance came from a rescue squad, and they were there in 15 minutes, which is amazing. So we take the feel goods when we can get the feel goods. You know what I mean? The wins. We'll take the wins when we can get them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I appreciate those. So now I just want to talk a little more about the relational aspect where you work, because once again, I say this shamefully. I think Hillsborough, I may have gone to the dispatcher center twice, talked to 1 or 2 dispatchers. Some I knew because their shift overlapped when I worked, so I kind of knew who they were. One was a dispatcher we all called the Bishop. I still don't know his real name, but it was the way he would talk on the radio was so different than everybody else that we all just called him the Bishop.
That's great.
And then another was a young lady, and her and I kind of became radio or chat friends. It all started when there was an injured deer in Tampa. In Florida's wild. In Maine, I could just walk up, shoot him in the head or whatever.
That's what
put
we
the
do in
animal
Giles County.
Correct. Put him out of misery.
Right.
Drag him to the side of the road, whatever.
Yeah. B-Dog comes and picks him up on Tuesday. Yep.
You can't do that in Florida. So there was 5 deputies. I was one of them. We would dispatch these animals without guns. So we would use whatever, knives or whatever we needed to do. And I dispatched this doe in Tampa. I've told that story on the radio, but I didn't tell this part. So I dispatch it, clear the scene. The dispatcher sends me a little message. Hey, how long has that deer been dead? And I said, 20 minutes. I just killed it. And she goes, do you think the meat's still good? And I said, yeah, it's just the legs are broken. She goes, I'm going to go pick it up on my lunch break. And I got to be honest, that's in Maine. Yes.
Yeah.
Very common. I would say usually you would get there to dispatch an animal. There's already 3 or 4 hunters or whatever.
Oh, 100%.
Ready to butcher it and get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
But in Florida, that is extraordinarily rare. So I said, I need to meet who this person is and put eyes on. And she fit camouflage hat,
Oh,
like Southern young woman. I said, "Did you enjoy the deer meat?" She goes, "That was good deer meat." And she sure as shit, she went and picked it up in her pickup truck. And I love, anyway, but that's the extent. And there was probably, I don't know, 200. I really don't know. So I'd be guessing on my ass. There could be 100, 200. There's a lot of dispatchers.
well, if you ask your dad,
Yeah.
he knows every single deputy that I work with.
That's what I'm saying.
Them.
You guys all know each other.
Yeah. He's met a lot of the wives. We have Christmas parties and birthday parties. And I mean, when I say it's a family, it's 100% a family. And again, it's probably one of the biggest reasons. I mean, I love my job because I feel like I certainly feel good every day. I feel like, I got to help somebody today.
Yeah.
But I also love it because it's a whole other family that I've made, late in life.
Yeah.
And I know that it's not like that in the bigger cities because it just can't be.
Nope.
There's not really a way that it can be. So
I could tell you in Hillsborough, besides the squad you worked with and maybe some overlapping shifts, we'd all work for the same agency. But if you worked in another district or another, like you had the opposite because we had long week, short week, and you were, I don't know who you are.
Yeah. And see, we call them different sides, because you have some people working this shift and some people working that. I'm sure we do it like you guys do it. We do it 12-hour shifts,
Those are long shifts.
It's a lot. Well, but we only have 10 dispatchers. Well, we have 9.
I understand.
So, I mean, and we have a few part-time and our supervisor and director, but you work 12-hour shifts, you work 6 to 6. Yeah. That's a whole other thing. I mean, some people can't do that kind of job. I mean, I'm fortunate I don't have small children and all that. But again, we work with the deputies. So like I'm working with 2 deputies, my road deputies, and then my corporal or whoever, but they're on the same shift with me.
Yeah.
Now I've changed shifts and stuff back and forth, had to move things around, but I've gotten to work with all of them pretty much. And I mean, it's a big family. And I think that's one benefit from working in a small agency.
100%.
100%.
2 more things, and then we're going to get to the last 2 stories.
Okay.
What is it like because again, small towns, so a lot of the people that call in. I don't necessarily need to know the calls, but what is that like for you to be like, I know Bill, why the fuck you call him?
Yeah.
What is that like for you?
It's there. I mean, I'll answer the phone and say, if it's not a 911 call, and we get a lot of calls that are not 911.
Fair.
And we handle animal control.
Yep.
We handle civil issues.
Yep.
We handle, it's people call and ask when their cable's going to get turned back on. I mean,
okay.
It's everything.
Yep.
So, and if it's a 911 call, it says 911, what's your location? If it's an admin call, it says, Giles County Sheriff's Office, this is Amy.
Yeah.
And of course, by now, it'll be like, Amy, I was just calling to see is the roads icy down there on Eggleston? Because I need to get out and go to the grocery store, but I don't want to get out and get, we have a large, senior community that a lot of, older people live out, and they call for stuff like that. They know us. My children are ridiculous about, Mom, are you at work today? Is 460, is it, I mean, can we get down 460? But it's fine. I mean, I don't mind it. I mean, sometimes I can't answer them and I don't know, but it's fine. Sometimes I get surprised.
Yeah.
Because things happen between, let's say, people that maybe you go to church with and you're like, wow,
I had no idea.
I had no idea you guys were going through all this, or their kids get in trouble and, you hear about it and, it's, I don't know.
I've said this a couple times on different episodes, and it's a way of thinking that I don't think a lot of people have had, or at least I haven't run into them. Law enforcement is a very intimate relationship with the people you're dealing with, even if it's for a short amount of time. And so it's fascinating for me because you're like, I've known these people for 30 years, 40 years, whatever, my whole life. I had no idea.
Right. And it's okay, so you're going to see them again.
Yeah.
He said they're going to call you in the middle of the night because their husband just knocked them out or whatever.
Yep.
Again, known him your whole life, never thought that was the case. She calls you and she tells you, and then your deputy goes and arrests him, and all this happens, and you were on the phone with her for 15 minutes, and then you run into her at Walmart.
Yeah.
And I think the relationship changes.
Yep. Can't help it.
You can't help it. But I think for me, and it's happened a couple of times for different scenarios, I just hug them and say, I'm sorry you're going through all this. And then usually I get, gosh, Amy, I'm so glad you were the one that answered the phone or whatever. Sometimes people will avoid you, but not usually.
Yeah.
I mean, especially I think if you approach them and just hug them and say, I'm sorry you're going through this or whatever. But intimate is a very good word.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a weird way of thinking about it.
But it's true.
Not sexual.
So
it's just
true.
like you're peeling back a curtain. Most people that I've ever met, with the exception of some few, but you don't just meet somebody and they go, these are all my problems.
Yeah.
I'm suicidal. I'm in domestic violence scenario. I beat my kid.
Right.
No, nobody's doing that.
Nobody.
And then you go in and all of that is washed away and you're right in the thick of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting.
And I think it's also really important that I call it being the keeper of secrets because.
Yep, that too.
I'm certainly not, I'm not going to go out and talk about that. I mean, even if people are like, yeah, we heard he beat her up or whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah. Because that wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
And I think, for me for anybody, for first responders to help people, I mean, they've got to be able to trust you.
Yeah. And that's a huge thing.
Yeah. If you can't trust me, I'm not going to be able to do my job.
Also true. Yeah. So, I can only react on what you're actually telling me.
Right. And if you feel like, oh yeah, Amy works up there at dispatch, you can't call her.
Or even worse, I can't call because they're going to tell my business. Or whatever. That's interesting. I didn't think about that.
And that's terrible. You can't call for help because you can't trust the people that you're calling. That to me is a huge no. I mean, I would hate that. I mean, if we had dispatchers like that, we're lucky because the climate that we work in, that's part of our training.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much beating our head,
This is a violation.
This is, and maybe it's not illegal, but it's unethical.
Yeah, you do that, you can't work here.
Right.
So I think with that, I think keeper of secrets, that's actually a very good, that's a good statement. But I think it ties into something a little sensitive. We'll talk about as much as you want or not, but you recently had a deputy take his own life.
We did.
And we talked about it.
Yeah.
And that was during the portion where I was doing a mental health episode on the podcast. And you were like, Tyler, you were so fucking right.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? What happened? But go ahead.
Yeah, it was.
Because you knew him.
I knew him. I worked with him every day. I mean, almost every day.
We don't need to use names.
No. And great guy. Had been a deputy I think he started out as a correctional officer and then got into law enforcement, had been a road deputy. And at the time of his death, he actually worked for the courts. I don't know if everybody understands, but sheriff's offices typically do all the serving papers.
Yes.
They serve warrants. They serve, civil papers, everything. That's part of their job. That was his job. He had decided just to come off the road. He worked Monday through Friday through the courts and he just delivered papers. Really happy, loved it.
Yep.
Knew everybody. Everybody just a great guy. Kind of salt of the earth. He and his wife never had any children, but they had dogs that they just loved and he trained them. Mm-hmm. He was kind of a tactful kind of expert. He had lots of guns and, he was just really into that kind of thing. But just a great guy. Always come in and say, you guys have had a rough day. I'm going to go down here to Dairy Queen and get you a Blizzard.
Yep.
Or, whatever. He was just that kind of person. Mm-hmm. We have Operation Save Halloween every year. So we do it behind the sheriff's office so the kids can just come up and they go from car to car. He always did this. He and his wife did this huge car decorated it, went all out and bought tons of candy for kids. And February 17th, his wife is a nurse and she was working night shift. She wasn't there. And he put the dogs in the basement, went to his bedroom, pushed a closet in front of the door and shot himself. Mm-hmm. When she got home from work, she found him. Mm-hmm. She called us and it's like an earthquake. The whole department, it felt like shaky.
Yeah.
We all came that day. Every dispatcher was there just for support because that's just where we wanted to be. I mean, we did the things that you do. I mean, we got his car and parked it there in front of the sheriff's office and we draped the blue and black, thing around it. We put the flowers on the front of it. We cried. I think we were in shock. I think the funeral was beautiful because it was, to see that line of officers with their lights on and officers and deputies came from all over the state. I don't know. It was beautiful, if you can call it that.
Yep.
I mean, we got so much support from other agencies and everything, but it's still hard and still kind of, you have a million questions like, how did this happen and why did this happen and why didn't we see it? Why didn't we know? I mean, I was with them all, every day. I mean, and of course the officers that worked with them. I mean, it's just, it takes a toll. Again, I'm going to talk about my sheriff.
Yep.
We had debriefings all together. We had counseling sessions with dispatchers the two deputies that had to go on scene that morning and be there. Process it. Started anyway. I mean, the state police handled it because he was one of ours, but still they were the first ones on scene. I mean, all this, and we did it the whole week afterwards. We did it the week after the funeral. We did one-on-one sessions. And I mean, he stayed after and talked to people and he called us out. He's called and to make sure we were okay. I mean, and it doesn't make it easy and it doesn't, it still hurts and it scares me because I worry about the officers. I know that you guys see things that we don't see. I'm not saying that, but I just, and I think as dispatchers, again, we're all women in my particular department, but we talk about things. Yeah. Women just do that naturally. And so we can talk about things. I think men don't.
No.
And I hate that they get to the point and they feel like that there's not another way. There's no other way. And they just can't go on.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It makes you sometimes I feel like since then, it's been almost 2 months. I feel like I'm watching them closer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And just to make sure that they're okay. And again, I never saw anything in him that would have at all made me think that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But
how long did you say he was an officer?
I would say 20 years.
So we call those old heads. So he's one of those seasoned vets, and a lot of that is old head mentality, I guess. Mm-hmm. You don't talk about those things.
Oh, I can't imagine.
It's part of the job. That's why the county pays you. So you deal with it. That's a very standard response, and that's one of the nicer response.
Yeah.
I won't get into the unnice ones. Yeah, that's why I think it's a big deal, because I've dealt with some of that in my own personal life, not to the point of suicidal ideations or anything like that, but reckless behavior, doing things you probably know are not unsafe or are unsafe, and you're not even thinking about the impact that it will have on your spouse, your children, family, whatever. It's a real thing. It
is, and I have talked to you about it, before. It's just, I think it's an awareness that we need to embrace, because and you're right. The older generation, my generation, I know it, are the least likely to seek help or ask for it. At least I feel like with some of our younger deputies, and with this climate that the sheriff has, by the time they get to be older, they're going to be used to the fact that every time you go through something critical or tragic, or you're going to come in here and talk to me about it. Yeah. And hopefully it's going to make that easier for them. They're not going to be in their 50s and be like, we don't talk. I don't talk.
So we've teased it a little bit, but tell me about your sheriff. I'm fascinated, and I'm hoping I'm going to have him on the episode, on the podcast.
He would love it. His name is Morgan Mill Irons. He's 60 this week. He is
five-time sheriff.
Five-time sheriff, the longest running sheriff in Giles County.
Yep.
Beloved pretty much by everybody. Great guy, family man. And when I say family, his family has a beautiful family, grandchildren, but also his law enforcement family. He started, I'm pretty sure he's better at the details, but I think he started at Tech as a police officer at Tech, did that for several years, and then came down and became a deputy at Giles, and then ran for sheriff and got it. Seen a lot of stuff. He was there on April 16th. Told you that when they had the shooting.
And Virginia Tech, for people who don't know.
Oh, yes. Virginia Tech.
Quick summary.
Okay, Virginia Tech on April the 16th had the largest school shooting, or college shooting, I guess, at the time. Maybe there's more now, but guy just he shot a guy in the dorms, and then, he went to the classrooms and just opened fire.
Yep.
And then he chained himself into, so Tech is a huge college. So he was just in a building and he just chained the doors. This was before, so it was 2000 and I should know the year, 8 or 9, I think. They didn't have the training, and they didn't, that we have now. And they just didn't have that knowledge. I mean, it was, everybody was just reacting and trying to figure out what was happening, and they didn't even know. My supervisor who hired me was the dispatcher that day. So she was also dispatching for these officers. And basically they finally figured out where he was. That was another thing. We're talking 17, 18 years ago. The technology wasn't what it was. We couldn't figure out where he was. These kids are calling on their cell phones, but we didn't have the pings that we have now, and we just couldn't find him. We didn't know where he was. But they finally broke down the door, and when they broke the door, he shot himself.
And the sheriff was there.
And the sheriff was there. When the sheriff was in that team.
Yep.
And for years, he carried that around.
He didn't say nothing to nobody.
Nope. Nobody. And nobody.
Did the interviews and all that, but as far as dealing with it.
Nobody came to them and said, we need to talk about this. I mean, they literally pulled college kids out, in body bags. I mean, they were dead kids everywhere. Yep. I mean, it was horrific. Yep. Something that most people can't and should never have to imagine. And they never talked about it. There was never any, I mean, they had a debriefing that just said, you can't say this and you can't say that, but there was no, how you feeling? Yeah. And, for years it haunted him. And I just think one of the things when he became sheriff, he said, I'm not going to do this. Yep. And he actually, I'm not sure of the real story, and he'll have to tell you, but a friend of his or someone that he had worked with started an agency that handles first responders, specifically law enforcement, and they provide counseling services. And all you have to do is call them, and they come to your departments, and they just sit down. Even if somebody just is having a hard time in life, it doesn't have to be a tragedy that happened. For if somebody comes to the sheriff and says, "Listen, I'm going through a really hard time. I need to talk to somebody." He makes sure you get it, because again, he went through it. Nobody helped him. And when he finally agreed with his buddy, he said, all right, I'll sit down and talk to you. What he said was, it felt like I unzipped my chest and everything just spilled out.
Yeah.
And I just think I think he understands the importance of it. And, again, we have a lot of deputies that don't like it.
Yeah.
Don't want to do it.
Oh, yeah. I
but
can imagine.
It's not even an option. He doesn't give you an option.
Yeah.
So he's a good man.
Well, let me ask you this. Knowing what you know now, how do you decompress a hard day or hard calls or calls that stick with you? What are some steps you've started taking, if anything?
I think, again, and this is, we talk about them at work. Most of the dispatchers, we're good friends.
Yeah.
I can call any of them at any time if I needed to talk about it. I mean, I can talk to your dad.
Yeah.
Your dad's not somebody that I can't talk to. I certainly can. And I just find I just talk to them about it. I think that I understand that there's going to be things that are going to stick in my head. I could go to counseling for the rest of my life, but I'm never going to forget she was just making eggs for breakfast.
Yeah.
That's never going to go away.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm crazy or I'm losing my mind. It just means that that's something that, will stay with me. And I don't know. I don't mean to make it sound like when you're older, you can't have issues or whatever, but I think with age and maturity, you just learn that bad things happen in life, and they can happen to the best people. They can happen to the worst people. Nothing ever makes sense. Nothing is fair. Okay? It's not fair. So you learn to accept that. And so sometimes I think that it's easier for me to process it than some of the younger ones. I mean, we've got a couple of dispatchers that are still having a hard time with losing the deputy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I'm not still having a hard time. I am, and it still hurts my heart, but I know that happens.
Yeah.
And I've lost people, and and will continue to. And I think I have a great husband that I can always talk to, and I've got great friends, and I don't have any problems doing that. I worry about the deputies that can't
or don't. Yeah.
And don't.
I got 2 more questions.
Okay.
Because a little off topic, but things that I've thought about now that we're talking. And I'll set it up with my personal experience and see what you think. So before getting into law enforcement, banking, I was doing other things. Once I started realizing, like what we talked about, there are bad people. And these aren't even people, I wasn't in a small town, so the odds of me running into them were very slim, but it started changing the way I would interact with people it started changing the way I parented my children. Sleepovers, that kind of stuff, gone. Couldn't do it. I saw too many things go bad. So it started changing the way I interacted not only with strangers, but my own family and my own friends. And obviously it was changing me. Have you seen that in your own experiences? Because I got to imagine in a smaller town, you're like, yeah, hey, talking to your daughter or something. I wouldn't let my grandbabies go spend the night at this house anymore. There's stuff going on. I can't tell you, but just, how do you deal with that?
100%.
Yeah.
Again, I have, two of my daughters live there and my grandchildren are there. And I have said, no, I don't think that she should ride home with her.
Yeah.
And they're like, and they'll usually roll their eyes. Mom, I'm like, I'll pick her up. Yeah, can we just do that different? Again, and we don't have a lot of really bad people, but I will tell you there was one thing. We had a school teacher, inappropriate relationship, and they investigated it, so I knew and nobody else knew. That was super hard because, definitely not something I could talk about.
Yeah.
Certainly not. Once the investigation was over, then everybody knew because she got arrested and it was bad. But before I couldn't, and she was there and I could see her, and you don't think about that. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, and it's this nauseating. I know this.
And you want to protect your baby.
Yeah.
Your
but again, I trusted my investigators. I trusted, and they got to the bottom of it. But yeah, it's difficult. And you're right. I haven't really thought about it, but it's difficult because I do know, you don't know all the people. Yeah. So you could be in the store with a pedophile and you wouldn't know because you don't even know him. Where sometimes I'm like, oh, he's on the sexual registry.
I know who that guy is.
I know him. Oh, gosh.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you what, again, a lot of parents don't think about, and I've said this before, and then I've had comments saying, I never thought of it that way. I will know you and trust you, and my kids can go to your house, but who are your friends?
Exactly.
And then you learn who their friends are, and you go, nope. None. Because what happens if that individual, see, it starts getting, and again, it's not saying that something definitely is going to happen to your kids, but it's like you don't even want them to expose them to the chance. This is a known subject who has issues with drinking, drugs,
whatever,
history, domestic violence, whatever their issues are. That's a larger conversation, but it's like you begin to, and this is where I struggled, and I didn't realize I was struggling until later. Too late for my kids. They were older by the time I started to realize what I was doing. I was starting to isolate them from people. And
I kind of remember when you did that. Yeah. I remember when, and your dad and I talked about it.
It was having a real serious effect.
Yeah, and especially when you guys lived in Florida. Florida was the worst. I don't know if you ever told the listeners, but he put bars on the windows of his house.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely did.
And we lived in a very nice, safe neighborhood. They did. But again, what would prompt it? Traffic crash. The husband falls, sees his face. I would go home. I'd wake him up 2 a.m, hug them. You go to a house, it's usually child, he kicked in his daughter's window and took her.
Yes, that's right.
Kidnapped her. Well, again, it's hard because it's like, that's her dad. It was just a weird scenario, but these little things, the next day I went out and bought bars and I said, nope, no one's taking my babies.
Right.
So it was like cause and effect. I just kept, and I just would see something go, oh my God. And then I'd started working on the sex crimes against children. And I saw the methods and means and how they were doing it. I was like, no social media, no email. Can't even have it. No, I almost wanted to turn off the internet. Oh my God, I can't let it in. It was a very aggressive reaction.
Do you think you're better now?
Oh, much better.
The kids are older. But
I know
this
is where it's hard. I don't know. They're a lot older. So
they're a lot older. But if you had small children, do you think you could handle it better now?
I hope so. I think so. The way I talk to my children now, I think is better. When I explain myself more now. My daughter says I overthink too much. Probably true. But now I'm very cognizant of, I have a very strong feeling about this. Why is it so strong? I need to explain to you why I feel this way. So it might be just, hey, don't do this because you might get hurt. But now it's like that little statement turns into 10, 15-minute conversation. I'm like, I got to explain to you why I've seen this happen and I've seen these things. And I don't want them to happen to you. On the flip side of that, my son, because now he's off, he's living on his own. He's in it's a large city for him because it's a mass amalgamation of people from all walks of life.
Right.
And every now and again, it's not all the time. It's not every time I talk to him, but every now and again, he'll be like, Dad, you were right. I ran into this and this is what happened. Or I saw this, or this guy just told me something that was horrific from his family. And it was his dad's best friend that used to beat the shit out of him. And he couldn't tell anybody, all these little things. And he goes, I remember you telling us that when he was like fourth, fifth grade, and he was really upset and mad at me and angry. He's like, but you were right. I get it. Again, strong overreaction. And at the time when they were little, they're like, oh my God, my parents suck or my dad sucks. Yeah. I don't be doing anything. See what I'm saying? So it's like, I think I do better now with this is why I feel this way.
Oh, I think so. And it's easier to talk to them now, but you also don't. I never wanted them to always be looking for the boogeyman, you know.
Correct. It's a hard balance.
Yeah. I remember thinking, okay, Ty, let's not make them
scared of the world.
Scared of the world. I mean, yeah.
Well, actually, I can give a good example. So I talked to another buddy of mine, Chris, who's been on the podcast. He's got 4 boys, range in age, his little ones, older ones. And when I was Deputy Tyler, Uncle Deputy Tyler, I would go in and I'm just valving off stuff. And I remember him touching me and going, hey, then we go outside. He goes, I appreciate what you're saying. He goes, you are scaring the shit out of my wife. And I go, really? Wow, but this really, he goes, no. And I could see him trying to, he goes, I understand. It's real. I got it. He goes, tell me those stories. He goes, I don't want you to scare my family. And then that was the first time I think I ever went, oh, am I scaring the shit out of my family? Because I would tell them stories.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking of the fact, I'm like, oh, we arrested this guy. He's doing this or whatever. And I'm thinking of it as like a cool cop story. On the flip side, it was probably scaring the shit out of him.
Well, and that's what I said. I said, you know, you can talk to the people that you work with because you can tell those stories and you can sometimes you laugh about things that are totally inappropriate or whatever, but that's because it's a coping mechanism. But if you said that to just a layman, they'd be like, God, she's
a monster.
She's a monster. I mean, that's just not even funny. Or that's just, why would you even talk about that? So I get where you were coming from back then. Again, my biggest fear at the time, and I think this is a female perspective, is I just didn't want to scare them to where they were afraid of the world. And then again, you guys were living in a different place than where I live.
Oh, yeah.
It's, you know, I don't have to worry about all those things that you had to worry about.
Did not feel the same way when we moved to Maine.
Right. You were different. It was different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and just for statistical purposes, Hillsborough, where we were living, 11,000 adults on violent felony probation, 2,000 or maybe 2,200 people on the sex offender registry in Hillsborough County.
Yeah.
I went to Maine. They had 1. The county we were in, they had 1 sex offender.
Okay.
And they had 600 on felony, some type of probation or whatever, but they weren't deemed violent. It was like burglary, robbery, theft, drug use, stuff very different.
Yeah.
Because those are different types of probation. These are 11,000 violent, meaning they beat the fuck, they shot people, they hurt people, like all in one.
Yeah.
888 square miles. It puts a different spin on things.
I know it does. I mean, again, it's not that I didn't get it. I got it. And when you just said that, I think we just had to do the registry. We have to update it. I would say there might be 5. I'm serious.
No, I know.
I think maybe there's 5. And honestly, I happen to know 3 of them. One of them was a stupid thing, like one of those. She was 17 and he was whatever. It was one of those.
Yeah.
I mean, none of them are. Not that I'm not saying that it was, but I'm just saying it was weird stuff. It's not like you said, not horrible criminals, but so we don't have to worry about that.
It's different.
It is very different.
Well, even in Maine, the people I came to call friends in Maine and my neighbors and friends, they still thought I was fucking nuts not because I had no bars on the windows. I didn't do, I haven't never done that again, but because I would lock my doors. They're like, dude, we don't even lock our door. They would keep their front door open in the fall with the screen and all the windows open all night long. I could tell you right now, there's not a snowball chance in hell I wouldn't sleep.
We don't leave our doors unlocked at night.
Yeah.
But we definitely open them during the day. Like
again, different.
Different, yeah.
But it's because I've seen when something bad, some person who just wants to do something bad, there's no rhyme or reason, pull up in your hat. Oh, this door, but they can kick it in. Oh, and if it's even easier if they open it. And now it's on.
It's on.
And what I would explain to my kids, and now they understand, I said, there's nothing I can do because I'm not putting bars on the window. Even if I did, if somebody really wants to get in here, I can't keep them out.
Right.
They will figure it out.
But you taught them.
All I want is time to know what's happening. Even if it's just 1, 2 kicks of the door and they're in, at least I'm hoping we're awake.
Yeah.
Now we can act, because I've interviewed people, men and women, they woke up and they're on them, holding them, hurting them. It's not always trying to rape, just whatever it is.
Whatever.
Now what do you do?
Yeah.
My gun's in the closet. What, you see what I'm saying? Like, you need time to process what's happening.
Well, and that's the same. I mean, again, your dad, we have done beside the bed, we have done the closet. So, but yeah, you're right. If we have 30 seconds to a minute, we can get them.
We can figure it out.
Yeah. And if you come down my hall, then this is what's going to happen.
This is what's going to happen.
Right.
Now, again, 100%. I've never shot anybody. I hope I never do. I don't want to. I'm not going out of my way to do that. I've never done it. But it's like, I just don't want to put myself in a position. And really, it's funny because actually, when I'm by myself, when I was living in the studio and stuff, so it's weird. Sometimes I'd forget to lock my door or whatever. I'd wake up and think, oh shit, that was stupid. I didn't have the same anxiety because it's like, I'd never want anything bad to happen to my kid.
Right.
Or whoever I was with. I didn't want that to happen. So then you'd see it turn back on. It's a weird thing. It is. Not that I don't care about my safety, but it's different.
But I think you can probably take care of yourself.
I feel it.
You just got to take care of you. You're good.
I feel like you're good.
Yeah.
And then last thing, and then and I appreciate your time. Are you happy you're doing what you're doing? Well, actually, 2-part question. Okay. Are you happy you're doing what you're doing? Did you ever, in your imagination, in your wildest dreams, think you'd be doing this?
Never. Quick story. Back when the girls were little, so when you guys were kids, because you're about the same age as the girls, there was a show that came out. William Shatner, Captain Kirk. I don't know.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
It was 911.
I'm old enough to know who that is.
Okay, thank goodness.
I've actually met him.
Cool. Yeah. I need to hear that story. Yeah. So he did a show. It was called 911. And what it was, and this was just when 911 was actually coming out.
Okay.
I mean, we didn't even have a 911 thing in the little town where I'm from till about 10 years ago. We just didn't have it. We didn't have street names. So it didn't matter, when you live out in the country.
I didn't even think about that. 911's not that old.
No. And
yeah, you're right.
This was one of the first shows. And again, so I would have had to been in my early 20s. And I thought, wow. And they would kind of do these little dramas where they'd show these people sitting with headsets on, talking on the phone, taking these calls and doing all this. And so that was my first probably introduction to what 911 was.
Yeah.
And so then over the years, there's all kinds of shows now. There's all of them on TV and you watch them and I'm thinking, boy, that's gotta be exciting. And all this, just like I said at the beginning, it never was even on my radar. I just was looking to find something to do. And this job, this ad came up and I said, it was actually on Facebook. I'm looking for dispatchers. I'm like, well, I'd probably do that. Daryl says, your dad says it's perfect. I get to talk on the phone all the time and tell people where to go. It's the perfect job for me. So
that's a simplification.
It's true. So I wish that I'd done it longer. I think I wish that I had. I mean, listen, it's not the kind of job where you're going to get rich. Okay. We don't make a lot of money.
Nope. I think you don't make enough. That's a different episode.
Yeah. But I wish, because I love it. And I've had lots of jobs in my lifetime and, most days, you get up and you go do your job. I never really had a job that I despised. I just haven't, I've had some that I liked better than others, but I've never had to shovel coal or put roofs on a house or anything that I think would be horrible. But
Enterprise rent a car in the summertime, probably.
I can agree.
Sweating balls off in a suit. Anyway, go ahead.
But I get up and I have to get up at 4:00 in the morning. I've got to be there by 5:30. Yeah. I get up every day. I can't wait to go. I love being there. I am tired at the end of the day. There's no doubt. Some days more than others. There's times when I have to miss things. We don't get holidays and weekends off.
Nope.
So,
I get that too. Y'all work the same hours as Scott. Yeah.
100%.
Crime happens on the holidays.
Yeah.
We don't give a shit.
Yeah. It's Christmas. Nobody's going to do anything bad on Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I do, sometimes I don't want to miss things or whatever, but God, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the people I work with. I'm so fortunate and blessed. And I think, again, I'll say it's kind of the tribe that you build.
Yeah.
I think about your dad and I. We built our tribe with you all and everybody. I think about the sheriff and he's built this tribe.
Yeah.
And I'm just fortunate, and I hope they let me do it until I have to wheel me in, on
So you
my
can't type
walker.
no
And
more.
so, yeah. Yeah, that'll be me. That'll
Awesome.
be me.
Well, I'm excited to hopefully talk and get the sheriff on the episode.
I will
Very
definitely work
excited.
on it.
Talked about another dispatcher. Would love to.
Okay.
This show is for all people. That's what I'm saying. I didn't necessarily want it to be a law enforcement show, and I hope it's not. But there's so many aspects to law enforcement, and it touches so many people's lives.
And you have I had no idea, and I still get surprised sometimes at what some of the things that I don't know. It's kind of like roots that, I mean, it goes, when you think about, the prison systems and jails, I mean,
Yeah.
the area that it covers. And yeah, it's amazing. And I think what you're doing is great because it helps people. I mean, let's face it, some people don't like cops.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
at all.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, and I think that getting the information out so that, I mean, they're just people.
Yeah.
Doing the very best they can and trying to help people. That's really it.
Well, let me leave with what you do. And the more I'm so happy we did this, but just talking to you over the last few months, what you do is so vital, and you have probably helped and saved more people, just civilians and law enforcement officers. Because I'll tell you right now, if you try to talk to a cop for 40 minutes about stuff, it's not going to go well. They don't want to do that. But the fact that you have the ability to do that and you care, because you truly care, but I know you. You may have been helping more people than you think.
I hope so.
And that's for dispatchers all over you see what I'm saying? Like, I never thought about these things. You've made me start thinking about it. That's why I say shamefully, I never thought about it until much later in my career. It's vital.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to talk about to more people. And I hope I get more people to want to come on because it's amazing.
It is.
Just think about the horrific events throughout history, 9/11, the shooting of Reagan, all these things that have gone on. And somebody called 911 and talked to a dispatcher about this shit.
And and she got people.
And those are big events.
Yeah, those are, I mean, and again, I think it'll be great if you can talk to April because she was the dispatcher that was working on April 16th.
Yeah.
And she was young. She was young.
Yeah.
She was a baby and she did it. And I think it'll stay with her forever, but I'm pretty sure she probably saved lives. And we lost a lot that day, but she saved a lot. So did so I think this is so important, and I'm so glad you're doing it. You make me proud.
I love it. Amy, I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
You're welcome.